Last weekend, the boys helped me to test drive this two-wheel drive Amigo. We also cut a bunch of stuff off the front of this vehicle so that we can put the front axle, the front Dana 44 from a K5 under the front of this thing and put 35s on. These videos are just going to get more and more epic, essentially building an old Jeep Wrangler out of a Japanese car. So, try to take these shackles out, which is basically like two studs that go in to the shackle hanger and the shackle on this leaf spring itself. They're stuck in there pretty good, and I'd rather not have to change these bushings. So what I'm going to try to do is unbolt the axle from the leaf springs, slide it out sideways. I don't know if that's going to work. Might take a bit of strenuous activity and a little bit of thinking, but yeah, that's my plan right now. Oh, great job. After hitting it with a bunch yesterday, I ended up taking that little security lock nut, slicing it, and then hammering it till it split. And then once it split, it loosened up, and I was able to, you know, turn all the pieces and get them out of there. Bob made it look easy the other day. Alright, so there is a method to actually putting the tire back on this size. Because I'm just by myself, I need to put a little furniture dolly underneath this tire so that this side will roll. And that way I can pick up the other end of this axle and push it through between the frame and the leaf springs. This works. I'm hitting the exhaust. That sucks. Made it just in time to go to work. The Isuzu Amigo, with the addition of building a 2.6 4-cylinder engine, which has giant pistons, the axle might not be able to tell on camera, but it's a third member axle, which is also not small. It's about the same size as a Dana 44. And normally, if we would have been able to find like a Toyota front axle or like a Wagoneer narrow track front axle, we would have used that. But because I already built the 12 bolt, which is larger, and because it matches the Dana 44 from a Chevy we're going to put on this thing, we're going to go ahead and swap the rear axle out anyways, which is easy peasy. I also have like these U-bolt eliminators, which is, yes, the exact same ones you've seen on Dan and Macy's Ford 9-inch. I've had these kicking around for about 3 years, probably as long as I've had the Jeep Comanche. Can't remember how much they're worth. Maybe Dan and Macy can clue us in on that, but I'm not going to charge nothing because, like, I've had this for a third of a decade. So this will get, you know, welded right onto the 12 bolt here, and then I'll be able to bolt the leaf springs to that axle. This is the GM 12 bolt that I've tore down, cleaned out, and re-geared, put the Spartan locker in a few videos ago. I think it's actually the first video in season 2 of Black Blue Garage when we started building this Amigo. The goal is to get this set in underneath this thing without actually welding the perch mounts to the axle. That way, later when we have this thing all leveled out and sitting on its own weight, we can then angle this pinion up toward where the transmission is going to be, which I got to build a cross member for the transmission as well. So right now I just want to get this cleaned off of its old brackets and set under there, and that way I'll be able to you know, figure out what ride height this whole thing's going to be. But I got all those brackets off, and I got these tubes sanded somewhat smooth. Here's the U-bolt eliminator kit that goes on this axle here. What's pretty cool about these from Barnes is that they've got these little tabs. In case you want to use this for your little Jeep axles, you can leave these tabs on. But if you're going to put it on a medium-sized axle like I have here, you would just sand these tabs off, and then this fits on perfect. Of course, I'm going to bevel this so that I can get a really good weld, and this will be on there really, really good. So I did buy these BFG 35s. They are much larger, much larger than the you know, 31-inch tires that came on the Amigo. But the good thing is that the Isuzu 90s Isuzu vehicles had a six lug bolt pattern that is the exact same as a Chevy. So the Chevy wheels that we have for these axles will also fit axles. Everything swaps over. So what's good about that is I don't have to mount these right now. I don't have time. But today or tomorrow, when I get this axle set in place, I can throw some wheels on there and see exactly how high the ride height's going to be. time to go to work again. Got the axle set in place. It's not perfect, you know, centered on these leaf springs. I could do that later. But what I'd like to do is temporarily attach this axle to the leaf springs, so I know that's where it's going to be. You could tell already by looking at the wheel to the wheel well area that this is lifted quite a bit. And in fact, if I could measure it for you, give or take an inch or two, this is about how tall this truck is going to be. So the top of the roof, you know, is right at about 6 feet tall. Pretty tall for a vehicle with only a 100-inch wheelbase. But with going in a budget, that's, you know, cards that were being dealt. If I had my way, I would do a cheap 4-link front and rear, and then just put some coil springs or something at whatever ride height I want. But so if you've ever built links before, if you go 1.25 Heims or 1.25 Enduro links, you know that it's probably about, with tube, $1,000 for one end. So $1,000 front, $1,000 rear, $2,000 to 4-link this thing, and that doesn't include your coilovers, your coil springs, your shocks, your limit straps, your bump stops, and all that stuff. All the goodies, and not to mention a truss, because you have to have most likely either have to make or buy a truss for your axles. So leaf springs, spring over is the way to go. If we did spring under on the rear, then the front would be too high and the truck would be sitting at an incline like this. This is pretty much our only option, but I think that once we get it dialed in, it's going to be just fine, because if we say that the truck is going to sit this high, for sure, and let me grab a couple of tires. I think this ride height is going to be just fine, but I think this ride height is going to be just fine, because if this tire is sitting right here and aired down, that's about how high it's going to be. And then you've got this tire sitting right about here, that's about 100 inches wheelbase. Of course, you've got to imagine that the front end of this thing is going to be lifted, you know, about 1 inch or 2, so that doesn't have any downhill rake or anything. And this we can modify. This side I can make the shackles whatever size I want, whatever length I want, to bring the front end of this up or down, and that's fine. The back side, however, the shackles are already at like 4 inches, which is like the minimum I would want, to still be able to get some flex out of it. So with that, I think that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna leave, so these U-bolt eliminators on the back have 3 holes so that you can move the axle rear and forward 1 inch, which we're pretty much decided on putting the front axle where it is right now, because I honestly think that looks really good. Having it like this gives us like 1.5 feet of clearance underneath, and because it's such a short wheelbase, that is a lot of clearance. But I think this is gonna be great, man. Like, look at this thing. You've got all this room behind the front tire, so like, steering isn't gonna be an issue. Like, you've got probably 8 inches of up travel here. Same with the back, probably like 8 inches up travel. So this thing can be as flexy as it wants, and the only body rub we might see is if we don't trim enough in the front, or maybe, you know, the fender well or the mud flap on the rear. Obviously, I'm going to test this in my backyard. I've got some hills to go climb on, and but honestly, this thing just looks dope.